Introduce our speaker for this morning, an old friend of mine and a person, probably one of the oldest persons who had the near-death experience very early, years ago. I think he'll tell us it's almost 70 years ago. Andy Petro. I'm going to pin you so that everybody can see you more clearly. Take it away, Andy.
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me. Yes, my name is Andy Petro, and this year I'll be I was earlier 87 years old, and that's really too old. I've been waiting to go back home for a long time, and for whatever reason, probably so that I can chat with you today. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm still around. Okay. Let me get off with the story first. Um, I say that I'm just a normal guy. There's nothing special about me. I my mother came from the Ukraine. My father came from Slovakia. I grew up in a small coal mining town in eastern Pennsylvania, and I was just supposed to be normal. And I ended up not being normal because uh, on a couple of days before our graduation, by this time I had moved to the Detroit area, and my father was working in the defense plants during World War II, and we went out to the a lake nearby to celebrate the last time we'll be together as a group because we were graduating in 2 days, and a beautiful day. I saw my friends out on a floating platform about 50 yards away, something like that. And they were waving and yelling at me to come and join them. So I jumped in the water and I started swimming out, and I got about halfway there and I started getting cramps, and they wouldn't go away. And then all of a sudden I can't kick. And now I'm underwater, and now I'm starting swallowing water and I'm panicking. I pop my head up one more time and I can see the platform, and my friends are waving at me. They thought I was playing a game. It wasn't a game. And then I went underwater again, and never came out, never came back. Down I go farther and farther down, and now it's really cold. This is Michigan, and it's June, and it's really cold in the lakes there. And I start shivering and shaking and gasping, and I'm in terrible pain, and all over my body. And drowning is not a good thing to do. I even describing it after 70 years, I can feel the sensation of dying, of Earth dying, and I'm going down deeper and deeper, and then all of a sudden I can feel some what felt like snakes, but they were weeds at the bottom of the lake, and I followed through the weeds, and now all of a sudden I hit the bottom of the lake, and for some bizarre reason I hit in a sitting position. So I'm sitting there with my arms at my side, and I thought, oh, finally I'll get a chance to push myself up and get to the top and be able to breathe. And as I push down really hard, it's muck and mud and stuff, and I'm stuck. Now my hands are stuck. Oh, and it's such a horrible feeling to be drowning and stuck and still conscious, and all of a sudden I hear a voice in my head, and it's a voice that is familiar, but I don't know it. And the voice says to me, Andy, you need to rest for just a minute. And I say back to my voice in my head, are you crazy? I'm drowning here. I need to get some air. And the voice says to me, no, don't listen. Just relax for a couple minutes and then everything will be okay. And I said to the voice, do you promise? and the voice says back to me, yes, I promise. And I said, okay, so I'll let go. And the moment the word go formed into my head, in what I call a moment of no time, I went from a freezing, horrible, frigid experience to warmth and light and happiness and love and 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 I could see the light, and I'm in the tunnel, and I look down to my left, and I can see my body at the bottom of the lake, and I'm saying to myself, "Well, that's strange because it was dark down there. I couldn't see anything." And when I saw myself, I I could sense my whole life on the planet, and I didn't care. No, I didn't care about my family. I was home. I didn't know what it meant, but I was home. And I turned up, and I could see this light at the end of the tunnel, and it's getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And I say, that thing should be burning out my retinas. It's so bright. It's like 1,000 suns. And I'm drawn in the tunnel like by a gentle magnet. And I'm going into it, and I'm moving so nicely and and filled with love and happiness. I could never understand how happy I was. It was just incredible. And then all of a sudden I'm I pop in a moment of no time. I'm now in the middle of a giant sphere about the size of a basketball coliseum. And I'm hovering in the center of the sphere, and alongside me is the light. And it has a form that I can't describe because it's formless, kind of like a target from a rifle range or something like that. That there was a top part and then showed, but and the light's talking to me, and and he said, and it wasn't a he, and it said, these are your lives. And as I looked around, there was like maybe 1 million giant movie theater or screens, and each one of them had an event that I remembered because I was there for all of them. And as I look at one, I would relive it. So as I'm looking at me right now in whatever this is, 2024, talking to you guys, I as I'm reviewing my life, I review it in a sense that my feelings are different in the light than they are on the planet when I'm experiencing something. And it's a different kind of love, and it's a different kind of knowing. And and as I review it right now, I not only do I remember what I was thinking when I was experiencing this, but I knew what everyone who was interacting with me thought, and what they thought about what I was saying, and what they thought about their lives. I knew everything. There was nothing I did not know about all of my life experiences. And it seemed like I was there for, since there's no time, it felt like I was there for a couple of months. And then all of a sudden I pop out of the sphere, and I'm back in the tunnel. And now I'm closer and closer to the light. And I can almost touch it. Now I'm in front of the light. I'm about the distance from the light that I am from my computer screen right now. And I'm right in front, and the light says to me, "Andy, don't be afraid." And I kind of chuckled because there was nothing to be afraid of. I was in the light, I was home. And the light says to me, "Andy, I love you." And right now, just repeating that phrase, it's a true ecstasy. And then the light kind of disappears, and in its place are billions and billions and billions of other lights like me, and they say in a chorus, "Andy, welcome home." And that's the best event, the best feeling I ever had uh, during my duration here on the planet. And and I was absorbed into the light. I became the light, and the light became me. And I became one of the billions and trillions of other lights, and we were all one. And I was home. And in pure ecstasy. How could it? I often ask myself, after all these years, it's been 70 years, and I was in the light for only about 10 to 15 minutes of Earth time. I knew nothing about what was going on Earth because I didn't care. I was home. Earth was just a bad story to me. I didn't care about that. But but it was like the example that I after all these years that I've tried to explain is the light was a glass of water, and I was a spoonful of sugar, and I as I put the sugar into the water to make sugar water, and I spin it around, and now I take on my spoon and I take a spoonful of water out, and I say to myself, well, where's Andy? He's everywhere. Where's the water? It's everywhere. Where's the light? It's everywhere. There is no separation. Uh, I find it really difficult to use three-dimensional words on the planet to describe what happens when you're in an infinite universe, when it's all happening at the same time because there is no time. And then the journey begins. I have so much fun in the light. Uh, 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 what I remember most specifically is that there was no going anywhere. There was, like, now, let's say I'm in the light and I say to myself, well, I wonder what it looks like in Maui. The thought of, I wonder what it looks like in Maui, now I'm there. There isn't going to someplace and coming back. You're just wherever your thought process takes you, you end up being there. And I was having a wonderful time doing all of these things, and see, the moment that I was absorbed by the light, I was filled with the knowing of everything. People often ask me when I do lectures and from time to time, well, what did you learn while you were in the light? I didn't learn anything because I knew everything. There was no learning process. It wasn't like I'm sitting down and reading a book and say, oh, look at all these nice things that you didn't know before. No, when I was in the light, there was nothing that I didn't know before because I knew everything. And I was having such a wonderful time. And then all of a sudden the light says to me, Andy, you have to go back. And are you are you joking? There's no way I'm going back. I'm home. And the light says the second time, Andy, you're going back. And I said, no, come on. This is it. I'm here. And the light says the third time, Andy, you're going back. And when I heard the K, in a moment of no time, I'm no longer in the light. And now I'm stuffed into my body, which is laying on the beach at the lake. And the pain of going back into my body and the pain of being back on planet Earth is, I can't describe it. Oh my God, it was so sad. And I started crying. And I wasn't crying because of the pain. There wasn't that much pain. It was that I'm not in the light. I'm back here. Now, this was 1955. The idea of a near-death experience didn't even exist. I spent 25 years after that trying to figure out what the hell happened to me. What is that? Why won't it go away? Why can't I forget about it? Why do I wake up in the middle of the night from my dreams and I'm forced to do things like write poetry and write stories? And it made no sense to me. I'm a logical guy. I love mathematics. I'm science oriented. This wasn't making any sense to me. And finally in 1978, when I picked up by chance Dr. Moody's book on a business trip and got it home and started reading it that night, I read the whole book in one setting. About 3 o'clock in the morning, when I finished the book, I was crying, tears of joy, because I finally knew what happened. I wasn't crazy. but this place really exists. And there are thousands of people who had very similar experiences. Ah, my God, what an awakening that was. So finally, I told my wife, eventually told my kids, as I never spoke to a single soul for 25 years after I had that experience until I found out that it was an NDE. And then it still took me about 5 or 10 years to get comfortable talking about it. Because you spend all that time hiding that secret that you have no idea what it means, and you're trying to figure out, are you crazy or not? Then it takes a while to unwind. So the experience that I had was so wonderful. Uh, and and when I started speaking about it, it made me feel better because then I joined IONS and I've been to conventions and life goes on and now it's a pretty common thing as compared to thinking you're the only one on the planet with maybe 2 billion people, however many people were on the planet 70 years ago, that had this experience that makes no sense, but that every time I think about it, I'm filled with joy and happiness and a complete and wonderful experience. So after that, I started getting up in the middle of the night. By the way, I'm not a poet or a writer, and well, about 10 years ago, I finally wrote my first book about the light, and it was filled with poetry because I spent about 25 years, 4 or 5 times a year, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with these things. There's a whiteboard in my head that had all these words on them, and I couldn't fall asleep. I'd get up and go to the desk and get a pad of paper and start writing these poems. And I'm not a writer. I'm not a poet. So I didn't write them. I was copying them. I was copying them from my head, and there were, and I was writing poems about all the interesting events that I had when I was in the light. And I was just writing them on paper, kept them in a folder, and then as I became competent on computers, I started putting. So I had them all recorded, and then about 10 or 12 years ago, after I retired, I decided I woke up one night and I said, you have a table of contents to write about a book you're going to write. What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. So I got up, I wrote the table of contents, and then within 6 months, I'd written my first book. And then I wrote another one about the same event, but this time I wrote it without the poetry, except at the end, and tried to explain in black and white and in English uh, things that are unexplainable. And I found that the poetry really helped me understand that. So since then, I don't write poetry anymore because I don't write poetry. I write words that appear in my head relative to, and it's always relative to someone I love or my love experience in the light. So that's that's the experience that I have. That's that that's the process of what it meant to me to leave the planet, to earth die, to spend what seemed like an infinite amount of time in the light, and then to return and still be here. So every morning that I wake up, first thing I say is, oh, I'm still here. And the second thing that I say is, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? And I guess one of my purposes is what I'm doing right now, sharing my experience in the light with people who want to listen and share their experiences. So that whole idea of being in a light is so fantastic for me, so awakening. It it peppers almost everything that I do in my life, because what I remember the most is, I've answered this question 1,000 times. Andy, why are you still here? And my answer is to choose between love and hate, and to choose love more often than hate. For me, it's not any more complex than that. So I'm finished telling the story. And if you want to have, anyone wants to ask me questions, I'll respond as best I can with those things. So
All right, thank you, Andy.
I'm open to that was the 25-minute version of my experience in the light. And the reason why I'm smiling is every time I say it, every time I repeat it, every time I think of it, I'm reliving it. And who would not want to relive that? That is, that's the thing that keeps me going.
You,
Okay.
you sent me about 17 points of things that you learned during your near-death experience. Could you share some of those points?
Oh, sure. Um, one of the things that is, I remember that I spent years searching for the answers to the question, like, what the hell really happened to me when I drowned? I thought the next book, the next religion, the next guru. I did all the things in the 70s and 80s and 90s to try to figure out what it was. And and Dr. Moody's book explained that to me. And one of the I did transcendental meditation. I did as many things as I could that were available to help me understand what happened when you left the planet for a while. And and in that process, I all of my meditations worked for a while, but I was looking for my own meditation, for something that worked for me specifically. And I wake up one time in the middle of the night and I'm saying, "Oh, I know how I can meditate." I try to I try to go to that silent space between my thoughts. And when I do that, I can feel the light. I sit down, I have find a nice, get into a comfortable position, and then I stop thinking. And in that silence, I can feel myself enveloped in the light. And it's really, really wonderful for me, because that's what works. After all the years of trying to figure out what is it that can really make you feel light bound, sense those feelings of ecstasy that you had when you were in the light, that we've all had when we're in the light. And that really works for me. So that's one of the things that my meditation is very simple and very straightforward. I just sit down, stop thinking, go to that silent space, and I can feel the light. Another question that they said was the three most significant aspects that I remember from my NDE: that there is no hierarchy, there's no judgment, and there's no separation in the light. I was brought up Roman Catholic, and I I I was a really true believer in that. And up in through high school, I went to a public school, but I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go to mass, come back, catch the school bus to go to school. So I was a a real true believer of what I was taught. I'm just talking about myself personally. In the light, none of that made itself to me. My light in the light, my life was formed around the fact that there is no judgment, there is no hierarchy, there is no separation. We are all one. It is all one, and that oneness brings me a feeling and a thrill that's inseparable. It becomes part of me. So that was one of the other things that I took out of it. Another question that people would ask me all the time: How do I? Why do I talk like this about my NDE? It's because I'm filled with a knowing and a feeling of what it's about, of what life is about, of what life on the planet is about. And the fact that I'm here now talking to you is one of the reasons why I'm still here. And the word one, when I was growing up, one meant that we were all one because we we were of the same nationality, we had the same religion, all of that, and the oneness was not inclusive. Didn't make it. It was oneness that had boundaries about it. In the light, oneness is everything. There is no non-oneness. Things are going along pretty well. It's a wonderful feeling, a wonderful feeling. So one of the other questions that I get a lot is that what does the best source for freedom and love abides in my silent space between my thoughts. In the silence of my non-thinking, I know and feel my truth and the light's truth. It brings smiles to my face. I really enjoy that process. The other thing that people ask me about is there humor in the light? And one of the phrases that I use is that the light's probably one of the greatest stand-up comics that exists. Humor is embedded in the light. Humor, laughter, joy, funniness, absurdity, delight, pleasure. All of these things were things that I felt when I was in the light. When we were reviewing my life, the light would pull something up for me and say, look, remember how serious you took things, how angry you got, how things did not work out well for you. Relax, enjoy life. And to remember you came to the planet to experience love and hate and to choose love over hate more often than not. That's what it was. That what got me there. That was good. I enjoyed that. So humor was embedded in the light. And I had many humorous experiences when I was there. One of the other things that happened to me was, let me get couple more things here on my list, is that my knowing was in what I would call in soul knowing. It's just something that I knew from a very young age. This whole idea of oneness and light is something that I really feel good about, and that I practice all the time. Being kind and being gentle. I mean, it almost sounds like I just came back from a seminar on that, but it's stuff that is embedded in me. Light has no beginning and no end. It just is. It's there forever. Uh, I remember experiencing stuff. I had I I experienced unknowing And then once when I don't know anything on the planet and then know it again, there's that aha feeling. Well, in the light, everything's an aha feeling. So that process works out really well for me. I enjoy it. Um, I do things with words. For instance, I don't use the word learning. When I was in the light, I didn't learn anything. I just remembered everything because remembering is there because of the all-knowing process. So anyway, those are some of the things that I responded to for questions, and I would be interested in any questions you have if we could get a little dialogue going.
All right, let's see is there someone on Zoom who has a question or a comment? Okay, Kathy Luongo, can you unmute yourself, please?
I already did.
Okay,
Andy, I really connect with your story. And my question is, how do I get your book of poems? Because Amazon is out of them.
Oh, okay. Do me a favor, email me, and I have them here, and I can send you one.
Okay, what's your email?
Andy Petro
Uh-huh.
at, at gmail.com.
That's easy to remember.
Yep.
I will do that. Thank you
Okay.
ever so much. Your story is just amazing to me.
Thank you. And the thing that amazes me about it, because I'm amazed that after all these years, it's as fresh as if it happened yesterday.
That I can understand.
It just
I,
completely amazes me every time. Every time I tell the story, it's
yep,
like it happened yesterday, and I'm really excited about it.
you're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so Carol has a question. Just a minute till I put the camera on Carol.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't have a question.
Okay, this is the Carol right here in our group. Just a minute.
Oh, thanks for your story, Andy. Really liked it a lot.
Speak
Lorna?
louder.
Andy, thank you for your story. It was a wonderful story. Thank you. I have a question. How did you get to the shore when you were in the water? Who took you out?
I don't know.
You don't.
I don't know who picked me out. Because when the moment that I got into the light and looked down and saw my body is stuck in the water,
Yeah.
I disconnected from it. I didn't care. I was home, and there was no reason for me to go back.
Mhm.
And there still isn't a reason for me to go back, but I'm here and I'm still waiting. I got my return ticket in my back pocket. So I can go back whenever I find out when the flight's leaving. So yes, but the interesting thing about that is that as this morning, as I was telling my story, I can't explain the way I felt on the inside. It was like I was back there again for the first time. And one of the things that I think many people who have NDEs experience is that whenever you relive that experience, it's reliving as if it's the first time. For instance, the couple of books that I wrote, when I read them, I wrote them, I've read them 1,000 times, talked about it more than that. Every time that I read that, it's as if I'm reading it for the first time. And that's very hard to describe to somebody, because I know that if I was talking about the vacation I had in Maui, and here's my pictures, and let me tell you the story about going to Maui, after 3 or 4 or 5 times, you'd say, enough. Okay, I got it. You don't need to repeat that again. I never had that. I never have that experience. Stop. I know it. Don't repeat it again. Because every time that I repeat my story, I repeat the experience. And that experience has no limit. And it's always fresh. As I'm talking about it right now, it's as if I drowned yesterday, not 70 years ago, but yesterday, and it's still fresh, and I'm excited, and I want to talk about it. That
So
that
how old
never
were
goes
you?
away.
How old were you then? When you
Pardon me?
drowned? What was your age when you drowned?
17, 2 days
Oh,
before high school graduation.
wow. Okay, because I somehow imagined you much younger. You
Yeah,
know, in
so
response to
so that was in 1955, and Moody wrote his book in 77, 78. So that time period, I spent going to every bookstore, seeing every guru, meditation. I went talked to some people from India, trying to find out what really happened to me, because I couldn't tell it to anybody that I knew, because I thought they would think that I was crazy, and they'd put me in a room with a padded wall somewhere. So that process that I was going through, and every time that I thought I found, aha, this is it. No, it didn't solve it. So it didn't solve it until I really understood what happened. And I've talked to hundreds of people who've had NDEs, and everyone is alike but different. And and now I'm just waiting to go back home.
Thank you.
Connie asks the question, is your story in the book? Let me see if I can get to the chat, just a minute. Hi, Andy. Michael says, hi, Andy, your NDE was the first one I ever heard. And that opened up the rabbit hole that I jumped down head first.
Yes.
And Connie asks, is your story in the book Imagine Heaven by John Burke?
Say that again.
Is your story in the book Imagine Heaven by John Burke?
No, my story is the two books that I have. The first one is Remembering the Light Through Prosody, and that's the word that I made up, which is prose and poetry at the same time. And that should be in, oops, arts.
Right.
Anyway, that they both have been on Amazon. I don't
You
know
wrote
if they're
another
still,
book that was more of a text rather than
yes,
poetry. What was the
and
name of the other book?
and the second one is Alive in the Light.
Okay,
That's the one without poetry.
all right. There was a similar story there, says Connie, in the book by,
Yes,
okay. Oh, we're going to entertain anyone else who has a question. Just a minute till I get back to the gallery. Someone else here in the, okay, just a minute.
sure.
What is your name?
Julia,
Juliana.
do you, Julia, but,
Julia.
do you plan to write a book of just poetry?
Say that again.
Do you plan to write a book of just poetry?
No, because I didn't write any of this. I wrote it. Okay. Oh, here I have to talk in contradictions. If you ask me right now, Andy, would you write a poem? I couldn't write a poem. You could say, well, I'll give you $10,000, write a quick poem. I can't do it. What happened on all the poems, the hundreds of poems that I wrote in my life, is I would wake up in the middle of the night with this thing in my head, and I'd say, oh, I can't fall asleep. So I'd get up, and then I would just open my pad or log onto my computer and start writing what I see in my head. So once I write them,
Publish those separately?
no, I haven't, but that's not maybe, thank you for the suggestion. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah. Yeah, there are probably about 100 of them that I wrote. But the interesting thing for me is that when I collected them, and then after writing a lot of poems, like about 100 poems, I wake up in the middle of the night and I got to write a book. What is that? I don't write a book. I'm not an author. And so I got up, and then I went to that, turned the light on, and I found myself writing a table of contents. Where did it come from? I wrote it, and I'm finished, and it's okay. So there it is. And in every chapter, was based on one of the poems that I wrote over a 20-year period. So what is that? And when I look at my books now and read them, I read them a lot, because every time that I read them, although the words are the same, I get different thoughts and different feelings. And I'm enjoying them because I didn't write them. I transcribed them. They appeared in my head. And every once in a while, I will write another poem, but it's because it appears in my head. I can't write poetry on demand because,
That's like a poetry ghostwriter.
yes.
Channeling.
Channeled
And
poetry, something
Yeah.
like that.
And the first poem that I wrote was about my experience, my drowning. That was the first one I wrote, probably 40, 50 years ago. Woke up in the middle of the night and I started writing it out. And then after about an hour and a half, I was finished. I never go back to correct them because there's nothing to correct. I didn't write it. I transcribed it. And people react really funny when I say that. But that's it.
Is it at night? Did the poems always come to you at night?
Always between 2 and 4 in the morning.
Huh, the night writer. Poetry
Yep.
night.
And I've tried a number of times to write a poem. Nah, that doesn't work. Doesn't work.
What's your,
And,
what's your,
yeah. And after I write it, when I wake up the next morning and read it, it's like, wow, I wonder who wrote this. This is pretty good. I don't really relate to them. So
The question is asked, what lessons did you learn from your life review?
what lessons did I learn from my life? Yes. First lesson that I learned was choose love over hate. Many times in my life, I was involved with computer systems. I was a technology person. I did a lot of stuff, and sometimes I would get in arguments and discussions and stuff like that. And I had an experience. One of my experiences, midnight experiences, was I woke up in the middle of the night because somebody that I had worked with did something that I thought was really bad to me, and I was really angry because I thought he was a friend and he ended up not being a friend, and from my point of view. And so in the middle of the night, I wake up and the voice in my head, which is always the light, the voice in my head says, Andy, you're really upset over, let's say the guy's name is Rick. You're really upset over Rick. Do you think that he's upset about what you're upset about? And I said, no. He said, well, why are you, the light says to me, why are you continuing to be upset and angry at the guy? Why don't you just let it go? Is he a part of you? Yes, because we're all part of each other. Well, then why don't you let it go? Just let him go. Forgive him, and you're not condoning what he did, but you're forgiving him from yourself to him. Okay, I'll do that. Finally, I can go back to sleep. No, not yet. You can't go back to sleep. What about little Arnie when you were 6 years old going to school and he would charge you a nickel a day, otherwise he would beat you up. Remember that? Remember how you hated that kid? Yeah. Well, let Arnie go. So I was up for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours through the middle of the night, remembering people that I had grievances against, and forgave them and let it go. And that was an aha moment for me, living on the planet. Because if you ask me right now, is there anybody that, what about the guy that cut you off on the freeway and all that? No, I don't have any ill will for anybody because I know we are all one. Not just saying we are all one as a statement, somebody writes, but from the inside, I know it's true. And therefore, when I'm angry at someone, I'm really angry at myself. When I say bad things about someone, when I hate someone, I'm hating myself. Why? Because we are all one. There is no separation. We're just vibrating at different frequencies. And the different frequency makes you, you, and me, but we're still all one. It's like when I was absorbed into the light and the light dissolved into these million trillion other pieces of light like me, holographic pieces of the light, and they all said, welcome home. Well, they're all there. I mean, I get someone will say, well, is this really bad person in heaven? And my answer is, yes, there's no other place to go. It's going back to the light, whatever name you want to give it. It's easy for me because I remember being in the light and coming back here and always remembering the light. I mean, we've been married for 63 years. And if you ask me to remember our wedding, I remember the wedding. But do I remember the details? Like I just gave you details of what happened to me when I was drowning and was absorbed into the light? No, I don't have that. You know, there's something about being in the light that is in a situation by itself. And that's the true me, and that's the true you. So we're all really connected. We're all one, truly all one. That's my story. But it makes my life here tolerable because Earth Andy really wants to go back to the light. And people sometimes say, well, why don't you just do it? Well, there's no reason. I'm doing the best I can to help people understand that we're all one. That's why I had the NDE, and that's why I'm still here. Gave me a chance to talk to another 25 or 30 people to explain my story and explain how being in the light is so fantastic. And once you really believe that we are all one, you can never look at another person with hate or ill will, because you're looking at yourself, another piece of you.
Michael makes this comment. It seems small acts of kindness can be one of the most powerful things we can do according to life reviews. Was that your experience too?
Absolutely. Yeah. I call them acts of kindness. Right now, as I said, I'm 87 years old, and I'm living in an old person's place. They cluster all the old people together. We're here in a senior living place, and there are tremendous opportunities for me to do momentary acts of kindness, and it makes me smile. It makes me feel good to be able to help and assist people in what they're experiencing. Thank you. So that's something that makes my life, as I said before, here tolerable. So
Helen has her hand raised. Let's see if I can get to Helen.
okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and Andy, it's good to see you. You came to Williamsburg Friends of Ions, and yeah,
Yes.
it's good to see you. You look good. I'm just wondering, do you think that you'll come back again? The reincarnation question.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I experienced in the light was all of the reincarnations that I've had throughout, and even here, sometimes I feel them. I know that I was Hawaiian. I know that I experienced being an American Indian. I noticed I experienced there are people that I meet and experiences that I have that are familiar in a way that they shouldn't be unless I truly experienced it. So yes, do I believe in reincarnation? Because the light, it does things to amuse itself and do things by creating experiences where we can experience the relative. In the light, everything is wonderful, everything is all-knowing, so there is no new knowing.
Now, I've heard there are different levels of heaven, and when is it out? When are you finally finished? When do you stop having to come back?
Well, you don't have to come back, it's you choose to come
If you
back.
choose to come back. Okay.
Yep. And you choose to come back and you choose to stay for as long as you, that's my knowing.
And you
Okay.
choose to come back for a purpose sometimes.
Yes.
Do you know
Yeah,
what
it's-
your purpose was in this life, Andy?
Yeah, I think my purpose was to really experience this time frame. I was born in 1937, so I went to World War II and all of the wars that we're continuing to have, and to experience, to have the opportunity to show love and kindness when none of it is shown, and it's a choice that I make.
Okay, thank you so much.
Michael has a question. Oh,
Yes, sir.
there you are, Michael.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I was the one that made the initial comment about you were the first NDE video that that I ever saw, and
Oh,
so
yes.
I want to first of all thank you so much for your courage in sharing your story, because I know it's you know, oftentimes not so easy, because I'm sure you've had people not believe you before, and because I've had some ghost experiences myself, and so and I've seen how people look at me sometimes when I tell them, but I'm like,
Yeah.
why would I make it up? Like, it doesn't, I don't get anything from it, and you know, if anything, I have something to lose. So and thanks to your courage sharing that, I was able to explore lots more NDEs. I'm a volunteer at VBIANDS now, and just, you know, a whole world opened up. And I was raised Roman Catholic, and so you know, I learned all about hell and how, you know, if I did something wrong, that you know, I was gonna burn eternally. And then I heard about NDEs and the fact that it seems that there isn't even a hell, and the people that have hellish experiences are actually creating it themselves. You know what I mean? Just like all this, like getting the NDE stuff out in the world. I think, I mean, it sounds like you've done a lot of wonderful things, but I can say for myself personally, even just hearing that this exists and that, you know, learning about reality, that flipped my life on its head. Like, and so much stuff that was like a burden is just lifted off. And knowing too that you know, if we don't get everything that we need to do this life, that we get another one. You know what I mean? It's like all the pressure is off. And so anyway, so just thank you so much. Like, you are doing beautiful work, just being you and sharing your story. And I mean, your courage is remarkable. And so also, so I was the one that also asked the question about the small acts of kindness. And
Yes.
one thing that even before I knew about NDEs, like, small acts of kindness were really important to me. And that's where the superhero thing comes in, because I think we can all be superheroes just by being nice to each other, just little acts of kindness, like holding a door, whatever. And when I listened to some NDEs, they talked about the ripple effect in their life reviews. And I was wondering if if you saw any of that in your life reviews, where one act of kindness like rippled out into other lives, and then you saw those other lives like rippling out into other lives. Because I think that is just a really interesting thing.
Yes, and now it becomes even more apparent for me because I'm living in a situation where everyone is in what I call their end days, where all the people here are, in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and 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 with that situation, it's really nice to show kindness, and and it's a feeling. It's a feeling that it's the right thing, and it's a feeling to know that we are connected. That connection thing is the thing that really brought me home when I was in the light, because we're all one piece, just the different chunks of the one piece. And that has kept me going for at least the last 50 or 60 years. Knowing that is makes everything different. I can understand, and I'll react when something happens to me. I'm going to react based on my ego and the fact that I'm here on the planet. But as soon as that gets by, I can now put it in perspective and say that's just it. Kindness is my choice. It's and it's and and it more often than not, that's what I'm trying to do. More often than not, to be loving. And it's my choice. And the beauty of it for me is that when I do something nice for someone else, I'm the one who gets the real reward. So it's not an outgoing, it's an incoming, it's an inflowing, because it goes out, helps someone, smiles, and the smile comes back and enlightens me. So it's a it's a experience and a feeling that makes me feel like a winner. And I'll take that any day.
Does it make you feel connected with heaven again?
Absolutely. I feel I I think about the light constantly, 24/7. And I think about it here on the planet. This is not the light. This is light like, but it's not the light. And 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 to continue my journey to do whatever I can in, in one in one encounter at a time. I realize it's not complicated. It's just loving. And I do it as frequently as I can. And I find that I'm smiling more now than ever, because the more time that I spent trying to make someone smile and happy about themselves, it comes back tenfold or 100-fold. So, I mean, I'm not saying little bitty, I'm talking from my experience in the light and how it's affecting everything that I do, even 70 years after the experience. It's actually growing rather than diminishing as I get older. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that so much. That you're so inspiring. I appreciate it so much.
Connie had a question.
Connie?
Connie,
I want to thank you for letting me join your group today. This is my first time. And if anything, the one sentence you said, there is no separation between us. We are all just different frequencies. That strikes home to me. I have had the experience through my lifetime of hearing spirit talk to me, and being able to follow those directions has saved my life many times.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
information coming, I understand what you're saying about that, because I was going to do a group for caregivers. My
Okay.
daughter has Alzheimer's, and so I'm working with people that are in this situation. And I was praying before I went to bed, Lord, I don't know what to say to these people. How do I get to them? How do I convince them that this is important? And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was told, get up, go to your computer. And I wrote 2 pages, and it was dictated to me. I did not write them. And that information I put in the book I just published on my daughter's trip to being not a victim, but an experience of
Yeah.
Alzheimer's.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. That does, I know exactly what you're talking about because I experienced that many times. That I call it I call it a knowing. I experienced knowings where, yes, it's reach up, pull it down and go with it. So that works out well for me.
I had a message given to me when I'm in a senior group too, and I'm 90.
Oh, okay.
I'm in a senior, not a facility, but a group. I have
Yes.
my own apartment. Before I moved here, I got a message from Spirit, and it came so fast that I did not get all the information. Mostly it was impressions of everything will be fine. Don't worry, we are taking care of you, the assurance of
Yeah.
divine guidance was so healing for me at that moment in time.
All right. Thank you.
We have two people raised their hand. Helen raised her hand and there was someone else. Maybe that was Connie. Helen, did you?
I just had, to follow up a little bit on what I talked about and asked you about before, Andy. Different levels of heaven, is that a reason to come back again to get higher and higher? And, what is the different
Yeah,
level of heaven? I've read, several people who have experienced that.
Yeah, yes. What I remember is that in the light, since I know everything in the light, there's nothing, you can't experience things new because you know everything. So there's nothing new in the light. So when I lowered my vibrations to be able to come down to the planet and be born here and live in this planet, that was because I wanted to experience the relative, love and hate, short and tall, hot and cold. All of these things can't be really experienced in the light because everything's known. You're in a bliss state.
The dualism, yeah. So the different levels of heaven, you don't really maybe agree with that idea. Okay, all right, thank you, Andy.
Sure.
Carol, did you have something else?
Um,
Let me put the camera on you then.
do you have any,
Just a minute. There we go.
do you have any hopes for humanity in terms of where we are in our spiritual development?
Do I have? Yes, I'm filled with hope because first of all, what I know is that this isn't really reality. Reality exists in the light. So we're coming down here to experience relative things. And in my 87 years, I have experienced many things and evolved in such a way that I'm accepting it. I'm doing what I can. Since I'm not a world leader, I can't do away with hunger, but I can help the people in 2 or 3 apartments down the hall from me. And so I'm able to have hope in those things that I can touch and know that in the long run, we're all going to end up in the light anyway. That's where we came from. That's where we're going back to. That's what I know. That's my remembrance of being in the light. This is just an experience, kind of like what I use, and analogies that I use is, it's like being in a play. You're in a Broadway play, and I'm Andy in the play, and I'm a character and I'm doing stuff. At the end of the play, I go home as an actor. At the end of my play here, I go home in the light where I belong. That's where I came from. Come down here, experience things, make choices, okay? Choose love over hate, choose to experience things, choose kindness, experience those things, and then go back home and do it again someplace else. Another incarnation, another one here. That's me. That's what I know. I'm not preaching it. I'm not telling people to believe what I'm experiencing. I'm just explaining what I experience and how it affects me. And the fact that I can remember being in the light, even though it was many, many years ago, as clearly as if it was yesterday. So it's in a special part of my brain that allows that to never change. I must have told my story 5,000 times over all these years, and it always comes out the same. It never changes. I can go back to the first time that I wrote it up on a piece of yellow paper, wrote down my thoughts, and if you ask me to write them down right now, I'd write them down right now, and if you compare the two, they'd almost be word for word. I don't know why, but it is, and therefore that gives me faith that that what I experienced was true for me. That's all I can say. It was true for me, and I love it, and I love being able to use that remembrance to make my life here much more tolerable.
Thank you. My people are also from Ukraine.
Oh,
All right. Anyone in the Zoom audience have a question or a comment?
I just wanted to comment about your writing. What you're referring to is automatic writing. That's
yes.
that's happened to me many times.
Oh,
And it's hard for other people to understand.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But for me, it's
Normal.
it's normal, and it's on. And it appears whenever it appears. I don't make it happen.
Right.
Yes. I wake up and I go down and away I go.
What do you say to people when they ask you where you get the information?
Oh, I just tell them that it comes from the light. Now, they don't, whether they believe me or not is not has nothing to do with me. I'm just telling you what's true. I'm not here to convince or to sell or to change people's beliefs. I'm just here to explain my memories and my time in the light. And if it helps you, that's great. If it doesn't, then I'm not on a mission. I'm just here sharing what I remember, and in sharing makes me feel better than not speaking about it. So being afraid to talk about it originally to enjoying to talk about it now is a benefit for me.
All right. Someone else have a question or a comment?
Yeah.
Bob has a comment here in
Okay.
the room. Let me put the camera on Bob.
Good morning, and thanks,
Good morning.
Andy. Thanks for being a chosen one. That's kind of what came to me, that, of all the people that die, not everybody gets to be a chosen one to come back to be an oracle. And so, you know, the thought occurred to me that, you know, when I was growing up, we had consciousness. Your conscience would speak to you. I don't hear that much anymore. That your conscience. But so my question, do you think your conscience or voice that is from a source in the light, or perhaps even from your experience in previous incarnations?
Yes. First of all, my time in the light formed me for the rest of my life. I would be a different person. I'm not good or bad, but I would be a different person had I not drowned and went into the light and come back. And so I accept it as that, and have done various activities to help people as I've been helped by remembering where I came from. And that's.
Does your light source ever come up with a name for itself, or had it suggested to you that it had a name?
Yeah, its name now is Andy. There's Light Andy and Earth Andy. There's really two of me because we're vibrating at different frequencies. Light Andy is cool. That's when I went. That was that. And then Earth Andy is me still being here, talking to other people who have their version of themselves on the planet also.
Thank you.
Sure.
What's the name of your book again, please?
One of them is Alive in the Light. And the other one is Remembering the Light. And if it's not on Amazon, you can go to the publisher, which is Outskirts Press. Outskirts Press. Go to their website and then you can buy it there. They're the ones who
Thank you.
for me.
Any comments or questions from somebody on Zoom? Need to unmute first. All right, then how about here in the room? Anne has a question.
Okay.
You don't want to be on the camera. Can you ask your question?
Yes, that the previous gentleman talked about, his wonder what other things, similar. I'm impressed with the speaker, and because his whole life is very religious, and because that his experience can make him realize that very profound insights, so I'm very impressed. But to talk about what he said, quite some Buddhism preaching their theory. So why is a lot of people in their whole life, they are Western religions, they, good, but they tend to feel they don't click that deep. But some of them, once they start to reading or hear some of the Buddhism theories, some of the masters, when they talk about those Buddhist theory tends to be very similar to what the speaker talks about, the oneness of the universe. Yeah, so that's some of the some people, the Buddhists also have two. One is the Southern Buddhism, is the Northern, those Northern Buddhism tends to from the China, those areas. Southern Buddhism more for the Southeast Asia, and they find out, but actually in all, a lot of Buddhism theory, very similar to what this gentleman.
So what Andy has said today resonates well with your research and your experience.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
resonate very well. So I'm just
All right. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, excellent.
Someone else have a comment or a question? Andy, you sent me your 17 points, and I thought that they were so well written and succinct. I wonder, did you include them in your book?
No, they're excerpts from the book.
They're excerpts from the book. I'd like to I'd like people to be able to read those because they're so succinct and so well worded. I would like them to buy your book so they could read it. All right. I would like to make this video available to people who are in attendance, and you might have a meeting in your own home and show this video. So you could get in touch with me simply at my email address, and I could send this video to you. And my email address is richardadingus@aol.com. It's DINGES. Is there any other comment or question?
Okay.
I don't see any movement here in the room. We have about a dozen people here, and we have about 14 on Zoom. Are we ready to end our meeting then? I announced to everybody on all the announcements that I'm going to have a turkey dinner at my home at about 1 o'clock was the time it would be ready. It's only 20 after 11 now, so we have some time before then. But everybody's welcome to come to my house if you would like to have a turkey dinner. We'll have sweet potatoes and stuffing, onions, carrots, celery, and green peppers. So, and this is in celebration of this event. So I thank you, Andy, for being our speaker today.
All right, thank you. I enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed remembering the light with people who are interested in remembering the light. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then we'll see you all next month.
All right. Goodbye, and see you again sometime.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Andy. I hope you have a great every day. And I hope everybody has a great every day.